Hi, good evening, and welcome to tonight's Parent University. It is 6:01. We are going to give attendees just a couple of minutes to get into the virtual platform. So if you will just stay with us and be patient for a couple of minutes, we do want to allow other parents an opportunity to get in before we start. So let's say our go time is going to be about 6:04. It's 6:02 on my clock right now. See, we have a couple of people who have entered the presentation. Again, we are just giving parents time to get on, so be patient with us as we allow parents an opportunity to join the virtual presentation before starting. So we'll start in about one more minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. Welcome again to tonight's Parent University. Parent University empowers and engages parents by providing resources to strengthen the partnership between RISD and families to enhance overall student achievement and well-being. Before we dive right into tonight's learning, we are going to give participants an opportunity to go into another, like a breakout room if you need Spanish translation. So we have put the directions on the screen. If you need Spanish translation, we do have that breakout room available. You will just need to transfer over to that particular room. And we're going to take about 1 minute and allow those parents who need to go into the Spanish translation room an opportunity to do so. One more time, I see some families continuing to come into the session. Welcome. We are just allowing time for parents who need to go into a different breakout room. If you need Spanish translation, that is available. If you notice the screen on the slide on the screen, those are the directions for that. Alejandra, are you able to pop on and give that information in Spanish?
Sí, sí, por favor, busca el icono del globo en la esquina inferior izquierda de la pantalla. Haga el clic en el globo y seleccione español. Ahí dice inglés y le puede poner español. Donde dice balance, ahí hay una nueva del control y completamente hacia el lado y ahí ya va a empezar usted a escuchar en español. Gracias por haber venido.
Goodness, you all, I'm just talking and I am muted the whole time. All right, Alejandra, so I'll just repeat everything I just said. Alejandra, if you will continue to watch for parents as they come into the virtual platform, if they need assistance for translation, please continue to direct them to the breakout room. For everyone else, again, welcome. We are going to go ahead and begin. We have a lot of learning for you tonight, and we hope that all of you are able to leave more empowered to better serve your students through the Seesaw and Schoology platforms. I'm Angie Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And for the last 3 years, family engagement has fallen under the umbrella of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I would also like to introduce the rest of my team. We have Alejandra Phillips. She's our Family Engagement Liaison. Jonah Ballesteros is our Program Specialist, and Maria Etherton is our Family Engagement Coordinator. We always like to kick the night off with a few norms. One, be present and welcoming. Our chat feature is open. We welcome you to engage with us and with each other through the chat feature. Listen deeply to learn. We know that we have different platforms in the district and we're all trying to partner and work our way through learning the platforms, helping parents learn the platforms, helping teachers learn the platforms, all of that. And so we just encourage you to listen deeply to learn. When things get difficult, turn to wonder. As you hear information, you may decide, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. This is so layered. It's too much. I have 2 children. I need to know Seesaw and Schoology. But turn to wonder. And one of the questions you might wonder is, I wonder how I can get even more help learning this. And we'd be happy to provide you with some answers for that. And then lastly, manage your impact on the room. Again, the chat feature is open. We encourage you to engage in the chat with us and with other parents. Just remember to manage your impact on the room. So tonight we have with us hosting the instructional technology piece are 2 presenters of our fabulous RISD instructional technology team. We have Ms. Robin Gunter. She's the Executive Director of Instructional Technology, and Taylor Roberson Wooten, who is an instructional technology specialist. And they will actually be facilitating the learning tonight. And so I am going to go ahead and turn it over to our instructional technology team.
Right. Thank you so much, Angie. Taylor and I are really excited to be here. We are a part of the instructional branch of technology. We also have the networking branch and the operations branch. So we are the ones who work directly with the teachers to integrate technology into the learning. And I'm excited for you to especially hear Taylor tonight present. She is a former elementary teacher, and she has been on the ground floor of this process. And so she has a lot of great information to share with you. So tonight we are focusing on the learning management systems, and that is Seesaw and Schoology for Richardson ISD. And you're going to hear us, since we have both of those learning management systems in our ISD, you're going to hear us use this interchangeably. You'll hear us say learning management system, you'll hear us say LMS, and you'll hear us refer to the products individually as Seesaw and Schoology. Before we get started, just want to go over some intended outcomes for this evening and what we hope that you will walk away with. And of course, if you have any more questions, we will show you at the end a way to reach out directly to us, or please drop some questions in the chat and we will answer those when we get to the end of the presentation. But we are looking to understand the role of Schoology and Seesaw and what they play in your students' academic journey. We want you to know what a parent can see in Schoology and Seesaw. And finally, where to find support resources, because this is 1 hour that we're spending with you, but we know that some questions may come up afterwards. So I talked about learning management system and LMS. So what is that? I'm going to give you some background tonight before Taylor gets started really showing you the ins and outs of both systems. But this is the real definition of a learning management system. You can see it as a software application, the administration, documentation, tracking, reporting, and delivery of educational courses and/or training programs. So this is a great, LMSs are great platforms for managing digital assignments in a classroom. And that is the goal of Seesaw and Schoology in our district. You may also be familiar, you may have heard Canvas. Canvas is another big LMS that many secondary or colleges use, colleges and universities. And so speaking of that, I have a couple of stats I want to share with you around LMS. Over 100 entities in Texas use Schoology as their LMS. So we are not alone in this journey, and we have other districts that we can partner with to see how they implement things. Many of our surrounding districts also use Seesaw, especially with their young learners. And in a report in 2015 showed that 99% of colleges and universities use an LMS. So what that tells us is that our students using Schoology in school here is setting them up for success in their future, especially in college and universities. The other thing I want to point out is that there's some transfer of skill here. We know that our teachers and our students were very proficient in Google Classroom. Well, that is not all lost. There are still many ins and outs of Schoology and Seesaw that they can transfer into using into this platform, like looking for assignments, looking for announcements. So many of those skills will transfer into Schoology. And finally, on this point, and something that I want to make sure everybody hears, just because we're instructional technology and we have a learning management system, we do not expect every assignment to be digital. That is not our goal. We know that kids need to use manipulatives. We know that they need to put pen to paper, pencil to paper. So that is not our intention. Our intention is to provide an easy way for teachers to provide digital assignments, select them, grade them, and give feedback to our students. So please keep that in mind as we move through this. So like I said, I'm going to give you a little bit of history really quickly before Taylor jumps in. So why are we using a learning management system? Well, there's a couple of reasons that play into this. First of all, I hope you've heard by now that we have a North Star goal in the district, and that is that every student, teacher, and leader will meet or exceed their academic growth goal. And implementing an LMS is helping us get to that for a couple of reasons. One, and most importantly, is we are able to put those individual goals into our LMS, Schoology or Seesaw, and we're able to provide artifacts around that. So that is an important part of that. Schoology and Seesaw also play a part in the learning innovation framework. This is what our teachers use to create engaging lessons for our students. And there are many aspects of the learning framework that Schoology and Seesaw can be used to create lessons. And then finally, our graduate profile, which feeds directly into that individual goal. What we want our kids to walk away with when they graduate from RISD is aligned to the graduate profile. So we're starting young with those individual goals, using the LMS for those lessons, and then feeding into that graduate profile for some success. A little more history. We looked at adopting an LMS back in the spring of 2023. We convened a committee of staff from all grade levels, all content areas, central staff, and we looked at all the LMSs that were available, all the learning management systems that are out there. And all those, and the committee got to evaluate all of those platforms. And there were a couple of things that we were looking for in those platforms. First of all, we were looking for parent transparency, because we know that it is so important for you to be engaged in your student learning. So we wanted to make sure that the platform we adopted gave you a glimpse and gave you the ability to support your student in their learning. Another aspect that I talked briefly about just a second ago was portfolios and being able to track those goals and provide artifacts and watch students grow into their goals throughout the year and throughout each grade level. And Taylor will talk a little bit more about that in a second. We also looked for a platform that would work on all of our devices. For those of you that have elementary kids, you know we use iPads, and our secondary kids use Chromebooks. So we wanted to be sure that whatever platform we chose could be used on either one. And finally, we wanted our kids to be able to submit assignments outside of just a Google Doc or Google Slides. We wanted to really focus on audio, or video assignments that they could submit, multimedia assignments that they could show their learning and that could be uploaded and submitted through the LMS. So these were a couple of the things that we really looked at and was important to us when we were selecting an LMS. After we narrowed that down, we then engaged a student focus group of about 200 students from all different levels, and we had them kick the tires of those LMSs, and they gave us feedback. They submitted an assignment, they posted a discussion, they they were able to track on a calendar, all the different things that you can do in an LMS, we had them try. And they were able to do all that with minimal guidance from us, and their feedback was pretty much that there wasn't a particular platform that rose to the top. They were able to transfer their skills from Google Classroom to Schoology and to some of the other products that we tried. So our committee then recommended, with all that feedback, they recommended moving forward with Schoology for grades 3 through 12 and Seesaw for grades pre-K through 2. That led us to last school year, where we then implemented both of these LMSs with 7 pioneer campuses, 4 elementary, 2 junior high, and 1 high school. And they tested that, or they used those all school year for 23-24. And what has benefited those of everyone else that has implemented it this year is the feedback that we got from those pioneer campuses. Much of that informed how we trained our teachers, and much of that informed the resources that we have provided already for parents. We took that very seriously, the information that they provided, and we tried to turn that into a more easier implementation for this school year. So, as you already know, Seesaw is our LMS for pre-K through 2nd grade. Seesaw actually was originally adopted in 2020. And it was recommended by our committee that we continue with that for our littlest learners because of the simple interface for them to use. You can see that in early September, we sent a letter that included a QR code that came from the teacher that would connect parents to their Seesaw account. Looking at the Schoology side, in early September, we sent a letter through Focus that had an access code that was specific to your student, and that is how you connected. If you do not have that information, at the end, we will give you a resource link to make sure that we can get that to you so you can get connected. Both of these LMSs for parents There is an app that you can use on your phone if you so choose, or you can use a computer and a web interface to access your student's account or access your parent account for your students' Seesaw or Schoology. That is a lot of background information, and I know that you're here for more of the getting into it and seeing and knowing what you have access to. So I'm going to turn it over to Taylor for right now, and she is going to give you an overview of both Seesaw and Schoology.
Okay, so we're going to start with Seesaw. So this is a view of the parent view. On the left-hand side, you have what it would look like if you were accessing Seesaw from your phone. As you know, as she mentioned, that there is an app, and I'm seeing just among parents that that's commonly how they're accessing it. So we have a screenshot of a parent view, and it would show your student's name, which we blocked out for privacy, but it would show your student's name and it would show what assignment they turned in. And so you have the example of this activity that was done with a pre-K student. So you can see from the parent side, they can see exactly what the child turned in. The cool part about it is if the student has added their voice explaining what they did, or if there's a video, the parents would be able to see that as well. In the very top of the parent view, you also have message bubbles. And so sometimes, especially in our pre-K sections, teachers will send pictures of the students doing activities or on a field trip or whatever it may be, since our privacy is protected within Seesaw. The cool part about Seesaw is not everything you're going to see is digital. Sometimes students have made some amazing project in centers, and they can just grab their iPad and take a picture of it, and they can upload it to their Seesaw for their parent to see. And once kids start seeing that you're able to access their learning, when they come home, I've heard a lot of parents say as soon as their kid gets in the car, they're like, "Did you see what I did in class today?" So having this connection and knowing that, like kids knowing that you can see it, we're really increasing that home to school connection, which is what we want to see. So this is, now we're going to look at Schoology. So Schoology, as you know, is for our 3rd through 12th grade students. And this is just the homepage. So on the left, you're going to have a parent view, and then on the right, it's the student view. So when you access Schoology, you are accessing Schoology in the view of your child. So my child is a senior, and so when I go in, if you see that blue bar at the top, it says you're viewing as, and then it'll say your child's name. The biggest difference is that you cannot turn in anything for your student. So you can see everything as if you were your child. You just can't interact with it to turn in assignments or comment on assignments, which we don't want to do that anyways. And the cool part within this is even if my child is in a discussion, I can see her responses to the discussion, but I can't see what other kids posted. So other kids' privacy is still being protected while allowing me to see exactly how my student contributed to those discussions. So on this homepage, first we have this middle section that's kind of like, it's very similar to a Facebook feed. So any announcements that have been posted, any submissions, reminders, all of those populate in the middle. Now, if you realize on the left-hand side, it's kind of blank. That is typically where you'll see your child's teacher if they have a picture, and it'll have their name. And they're blocked out on here for privacy reasons. So when you're viewing your child, you'll see specifically what teacher posted what, so you know what information that goes with. And so you have your feed. Then on the right-hand side, we have a to-do list. And this is my favorite part of Schoology as a parent. I can quickly log in and I can see her to-do list and see all of her assignments that she has coming up, when they're due, and then how they're blue, that means they're linked. So when I click on, the planning process document, it will take me to that assignment so that I can see what she should be turning in. And then if you look, if something's overdue, it's going to put it in that category so that I can remind her like, hey, you haven't turned it in yet. Let's work on that. And then you also have upcoming assignments so that you can partner with your child while they're still learning those habits of how to manage their time. Then if you look a little bit further down, we have upcoming events. So sometimes our secondary teachers will put on their calendar, there's a Unit 3 test coming up. Now the Unit 3 test may not be through Schoology, but they can access the calendar so that kids can get in the habit of checking a calendar and keeping up with their work. And then at the very bottom, there's an area called recently completed. So as my child turns in those assignments, it will then go from the to-do list down to recently completed. And then as the teacher grades, If they are grading in Schoology, because Focus is still our grade book of record, so grading in Schoology is a choice. If they are grading in Schoology where that dash mark is, I can see that grade immediately as the teacher is updating it. Then at the top, I still can go into a specific course if I do have a concern or I want to see past assignments. If my child is a part of a group, I can see those groups. So she's a part of a senior group, so I can go in and see any senior announcements they have. And then I can also access her grades. But again, Focus is our grade book of record, so I try to stay away from there and I focus more on what grades are in Focus.
I'm just going to add to that, Taylor. Courses are rostered through Focus, so that kids are automatically put into those courses, and groups are, like Taylor said, a different group of it that a teacher puts together of a certain students. It could be a club, an extracurricular. They would be more in a group.
Okay,
And Taylor, I just want to pull forward a comment from a parent. And you just kind of walked us through it. And she said, I thought that I would be able to see everything by clicking in the top right-hand corner of the page. But later, and we're talking Schoology, but later discovered major grades seem to require me to click into each course separately. I'm just wondering if there's any clarification you can provide.
Yes. So when you're on this feed, if you see right there, and Robin, you might have to hover over it where it says most recent, you can toggle that down to go to submissions, and that will take away, that will kind of like adjust your feed to where you can only see what your child has submitted. And then it'll say, like my daughter's name is Ayana. So it might say Ayana turned in SI number 5. And then I can click on that assignment and it will open it up. Now, I will say when it comes to major and minor grades, that's kind of up to the teacher whether that assignment was actually in Schoology. So sometimes there are pockets of teachers that will put in, you have this planning document coming up this Friday, but it's really something they did in class, but they wanted that calendar feature to help remind the kids to do it. So sometimes there's not something connected to it, but you should be able, if the assignment was digital or was a picture that they've turned in, regardless if it's major or minor, you should be able to see it in there.
The next question was, how do we access this outside of our students' Chromebook? I think you answered that, Robin, in the beginning. You said that those QR codes were sent.
Yes.
And we're gonna provide that at the end, so a resource to help them get to that information at the end of the presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to shift back to Seesaw, and we're going to kind of focus in on what does student learning look like in Seesaw. So first, just again, so you know, Seesaw, you're going to see a mix. It's not going to always be a digital assignment. It may be something they did in centers, or it may be a picture of some of their work that maybe isn't going to come home just yet because it's hanging up in the hallways. And so you're going to see a mix of products. But Seesaw in general offers our littles the ability to draw and record their voices. And so no matter where our students are in their learning, whether they're ready to write or ready to talk in complete sentences or are drawing to communicate, we're making sure that we're accessing every child and giving them an opportunity to show their learning. And that's why our teachers love Seesaw so much, because they have an opportunity to hear from every child. Students can use shapes within their Seesaw. So for example, in pre-K right now, they are comparing shapes. And so you might see some sorts where they're comparing different size shapes. They can also submit multimedia files. So we have a lot of first graders in our district that are doing fun projects in Keynote, and they know how to turn it in to where it's a photo so that you can see the awesome activities they've done in another platform. And then taking pictures, I think, is the biggest thing that we see. Students are super excited to show their learning, whether it was on paper or something they built. And so we're really just accessing a different opportunity for students to show their learning. So the example to the right is identifying words with a short E vowel sound. So at the bottom, the teacher had a multitude of words, and students are dragging what words they think have the short E vowel sound up to the top. And if you look really closely, it says correct first try. And so this is an assessment type where the student is going to get automatic feedback on if they got an answer correct or not. And the teacher on their side can see how many tries it took that child to get the correct answer. So even though this is a fun drag and drop activity for our kids, our teachers are constantly collecting data for it. Okay, and then same thing, but for Schoology. So in Google Classroom, we had a lot of transfer to knowledge of switching from Google Classroom to Schoology. However, Schoology is going to be a more robust platform because just like with our littles, we're giving them a multitude of ways to show their learning. We want to make sure we're doing that for our older students because every child does not learn the same. So within Schoology, we are now continuing the ability to annotate and draw. So you may see some teachers do interactive digital worksheets where students can annotate over it. I'm a former fourth grade RLA teacher, and so the ability to have a passage and have every child have their own and be able to annotate it without making a million copies, especially when their star is also digital. I'm not only practicing the skill of annotation, but I'm also preparing them for the platform that they're going to be tested in the spring. Students can collaborate and have discussions, and our discussions have leveled up to where students can add videos, and they can also record their voice within them. And then really just on any assignment, students can always have a video or record their voice to show their learning because we do have emerging readers and writers still even as we progress through secondary. And sometimes students know the information, they just need another mode of communicating that. So we're making sure that we're meeting all of our kids where they are, even when they leave second grade. And then they can also submit multimedia files. We have a lot of resources for our teachers and students in Richardson ISD, and so they can pair this with Nearpod. If they're using WeVideo or Adobe or Canva, all these multitude of products that we use to allow kids to express their learning, we can still put them in one place so that teachers, students, and parents can go to one place to see that information. So to the right is an example of a research project that a student did over a figure that has impacted the Texas community. So just another way of showing their learning. They could have written a paper, they could have recorded the video, or this is a presentation that they made and recorded. Okay, so within Seesaw, I kind of want to shed light on the instructional features available to our teachers. So teachers can create assignments that are drag and drops, also known as sorts. So sometimes you might be sorting nouns and adjectives or non-living and living things. We have also given our teachers the ability to have some of the new features within Seesaw, like flex cards. They're flashcards. So it's a practice feature for kids to practice. We've seen it in kindergarten with kids, going to the center and being able to practice their letters or even their numbers. And the cool part is the teacher can put their voice with it. So they're listening to their teacher say it and then they're practicing. And a teacher could be off to the side pulling a small group. So every kid is still getting what they need. Within Seesaw, we are still preparing our learners for eventually they're going to be taking stars or tests that have multiple choice. So we have multiple choice questions where they can have more than one right. We have short and long answers to get them ready for those ECRs. And we even have a reading fluency piece that's really going to allow our teachers to hear our kids read every day. This does not replace our students getting to read with their teacher. That is still happening. But now teachers can also say, I might be pulling my kids once a week to hear them read, but I'm going to have this reading fluency activity every day so that every child is getting to practice and I have that data built in, even though there's not enough time in the day for me to pull every child every day. Then within it, we have a ton of accessible features to meet all of our students where they are. So for example, we kind of talked about the drawing. Some of our friends aren't ready to write yet, so they can draw to communicate what they're thinking or to be able to answer or even to retell a story. We have focus mode that takes away a lot of the distractions within Seesaw so that our students are focusing purely on the content. Our teachers can provide audio directions or even video directions. And we have closed captions. And then because students are using the iPad, we have all the accessible features that are built in the iPad, like text to speech and dictation. So every child's needs are still being met and their accommodations are still being met as well within Seesaw. Okay, and then within Schoology. So in Schoology, we have some enhanced instructional features. So I'm really focusing on the features that our teachers now have in Schoology that they didn't have previous. So the first one is a folder structure. And so if you remember in Google Classroom, they had topics. Well, now they have the ability to put things in folders. And one, this is kind of helping our kids be able to find the correct activity that they may need or notes. But we're also modeling from a teacher standpoint, we're modeling to our students of how we can be organized and put things in folders and trying to kind of teach some of those soft skills. We also have completion rules, which is made for maybe I have a friend that is super excited about their learning, but they want to do the fun activity first before they do the practice activities leading up to it. So teachers can add completion rules to kind of help that pacing to ensure our students are building upon their learning. My favorite part is the tracking revisions. So if I have a student that completes an activity and maybe they earned a 50 because they need a little more support from me, when I give them another try to turn it in, it's going to track every single time they turn it in. So you as the parent can see, maybe in the grade book, they have a 70, but when you go into Schoology, you can see, well, it took them maybe 3 tries to get to that 70. And we know that that's a place of growth. And teachers can also have interactive banners just to make things easier for kids to find. So we have some teachers that have a banner at the top of their Schoology, and kids can click it to email their teacher, or they can click it to go to this week's learning. They're kind of mapped out based on whatever that teacher felt like her or his set of students needed. And then as Robin mentioned, they're rostered through focus. So kind of when our students transition to junior high or middle school and high school, sometimes their courses may change, whether it's semester or maybe their schedule wasn't quite right that first week and we're still in the process of changing it. Now, as soon as our students switch to another class within 24 hours when focus is updated, Schoology is going to be updated as well. So we're decreasing that time, that transition time of getting them in the right course online. Then our accessible learning within Schoology is very similar to our Seesaw accessibility options. Students can record their voices or even have a video to turn in assignments, as we still have some emerging readers in our secondary courses. There are also those annotative assignments, so students have options on how they're going to show their learning. There are enhanced discussions, which we covered a little bit on the last Schoology side. There is also media albums. So maybe I have anchor charts up around my room and maybe we're done with that unit, but I have some friends that may need to refer to it whenever we're moving on. They can have an album full of those pictures of whether it's notes, anchor charts, just so that they can refer to their learning. And then the last is Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is built in Schoology. And so if a student needs translation or they need something read to them, they have this button that says Immersive Reader, and they can click that and receive the supports that they need. Okay, and so now we have portfolios. So as Robin mentioned, from our North Star goal in the graduate profile, every student has a goal pre-K through 12 based on one of the 5 competencies from the graduate profile. So you may have heard about a few of these at home. It's effective communication, financial literacy, critical thinking and problem solving, emotional intelligence, and real-world connections. So on the left-hand side, we have some pre-K through 2nd grade examples. Within Seesaw, their portfolios are folders, essentially, and so they are showing evidence of them working towards their goal. So you probably know in pre-K, there's not a pre-K student say, I'm going to do effective communication this year. So they're more of class goals, so you'll notice more of like a teacher posting a picture of them working towards that goal. So there is some accommodation features depending on how old the child is. But if you look at that top example, we have that the goal is effective communication, and the teacher has written out what does this look like in pre-K and some examples. And so we have some pictures of students doing their show and tell. So that's them practicing effective communication. Then below it, we have some writing samples where students have drawn to communicate what their pets are, or they've drawn a picture, and those are also modes of effective communication along with the video. So using a portfolio within Seesaw is giving us multiple modes to show our kids working towards one of those 5 goals. And then the same thing is happening in Schoology. So within Schoology, we have our portfolios. Our students are still choosing their goal. You'll notice that depending on the grade level, your student may be choosing their own independent goal that they want to work on. They will have something in there saying what their goal is. Their map data will be present, and then you'll start seeing an artifact every quarter showing that they're working towards that goal. And same thing with Seesaw or Schoology. It can be a paper-based assignment or a digital assignment, so you'll probably see a mix of them. But the cool part about it is within Seesaw, that portfolio that they make in pre-K will stay with them until second grade. And so as a parent and as a teacher, if I teach first grade, I can look at all of my students' portfolios from kindergarten. So as a parent, you'll be able to see those portfolios every single year. And then for our 3rd through 12th grade students, their portfolios will be housed in Schoology. So if you have a student in 8th grade this year, when they're graduating from the district, they will be able to go back and see every portfolio they've created. And then at the very end in their senior year, they'll be able to download that, and then they'll have that even when they leave RISD. So the cool part is we're tracking that progress towards whichever goal they've chosen that year, continuously pre-K until they graduate from RISD.
It's pretty exciting. But that was a lot of information. So we want to make sure that you feel supported after this and throughout this year and into future years when you're using Schoology and Seesaw. So we have set up some support resources for you. I'm going to start with the short links that are at that bottom of the left-hand side, the s.rsd.org. These go directly to a form. Instructional technology staff monitors these forms every day, and we are able to usually reply within 24 to 48 hours to help you get solved whatever you need to. So if you are not connected to your student's account yet, if you have not made a parent account for Schoology or Seesaw, please jot down these short links and be able to fill it out tonight. We'll be sure to get in touch with you in the very near future. Also, if you just have any question related to Seesaw or Schoology, we welcome you to fill out that form. And then you see the web address up at the top that says resources with rsd.org. If you follow that path, rsd.org to technology to instructional technology, about halfway down that page, you will see what you now see on the right-hand side of the screen, which is an overview of Schoology and Seesaw and a link to a resource page. Our Schoology page has FAQs on it. It has bulleted directions, and it has some short videos that our team has made that will help you navigate and remind you some of the things that Taylor has shown you tonight. And you'll see the same thing for Seesaw. I'll be honest with you, the Seesaw resource page goes directly to Seesaw's resources because they did a great job and we could not have done it better. As you are tonight, in fact, if you think of a resource that you would like to see for one of these platforms, if you will go to, you can drop it in the chat, of course, or if you want to go to the short link, the s.rsd.org link, and just put it in there as your question, we will definitely take that into consideration and work towards getting you those resources. We know that this is an ongoing process and that as everybody grows into using these resources, we'll need more and more. I was going to stop there, Angie. Were there any questions?
Yes,
Okay.
we had a question. Let me get back to it. She is wanting to know about syncing and calendars. Is there an area that we could go to see what's due in the near future? That's one part of the question. Also, can Schoology's calendar sync with other calendars like Google Calendar? That's the second part. I'll stop there and let you go.
Okay, so I'll start. So the area for you to see what's due in the near future, that would be that to-do list portion that we had the screenshot of. And as I think about the question that was asked earlier about how you just weren't able to see some of the things, that could be if the teacher is not putting a due date on the assignment in Schoology. So if the teacher is not attaching a due date, it will not populate on that to-do list area. And so that may be something you need to ask of that teacher of, hey, do you mind adding the due dates on these assignments in Schoology so that that to-do list can populate for our students. As you know, this is the first year for many of our campuses, and so they may not be proficient in that area yet. But if you ask them, I'm sure they would be ready to add some so that it can be in that to-do list area. So that's where you would see those due and in the near future. I'm not sure if it syncs into the Google Calendar. We haven't seen that yet, but I will say what we can do is in your parent settings and in the student settings, we can turn on those notifications so that you can receive a notification about deadlines, due dates, upcoming things, because that calendar is active to where even if the teacher doesn't post, I saw something about there's 4 phases to a project and you want to have kind of some markers. That student may have to add those markers in there if the teacher hasn't added those dates. So maybe every Friday is a little check-in to see where they are. Any student, they can go in and add anything to their calendar. And then once those notifications are turned on, they can receive an email to be notified. And then Schoology is also an app. So if your student has a cell phone and you want to have them put it on the app so that they can get that notification on their phone too, that might help as well.
So what I hear you saying, Taylor, is that the students can also put things on their calendar themselves, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So those are all the questions in the chat that I see so far. But parents, if you have any other lingering questions, now is the time to ask while we have personalized attention from our instructional technology team. So let's take about 1 minute if you have another question to put in the chat. Christine says, will the teachers have a consistent protocol to use? It seems like each teacher is using Schoology differently.
Yeah.
Going forward, I think she's asking, is there going to be some consistency in protocol?
I think that's an interesting question. I think that we could definitely provide some guidance toward that and also talk with principals to see if they want to provide guidance on their own campus related to that and how they're using it. I will say Taylor talked about how teachers are still getting familiar with it. When I talked about parent access just a little bit ago, if you notice, we didn't release parent access to Schoology and Seesaw until right after Labor Day. And a lot of that is because it was brand new and everybody was getting familiar with it. Well, that has continued. So little things like putting a due date and remembering to do that so that it shows up on the to-do list is something that we're definitely working towards, and we'll definitely take into account, is there some sort of streamlined expectations that we can ask of all teachers? That's a good question.
I love that as well, and maybe we can help with a little bit of that in just some of our reminders to our family engagement specialists and our equity liaisons as they're messaging things out, direct information that we're getting from parents. Maybe we can help message it a little bit on campuses as well. The other question is, are there any functions in Schoology that have to be accessed through a browser versus using the app or vice versa?
From a parent perspective, no. From a student perspective, yes. The portfolio has to be accessed through the browser. So your student would have to go through ClassLink in order to update their portfolio. It's not available in the Schoology app yet.
And also to that point, really quickly, if you haven't set up your parent account, especially for Schoology, Schoology recommends that you do that in a web browser first. Don't try to set up your parent account in the app.
And so I'm wondering, so my son is a freshman in college and they use Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've known, which is one of the the LMSs that you mentioned earlier, and I've noticed as a parent, it looks different if I access it on my phone versus if I access it from my laptop. The parent view is different to me, quite a bit different. Like there are things that I can't see when I access it on my phone versus on the laptop. And I'm just wondering if that's true for any of our systems.
It could be. I think that sometimes when you're in a mobile browser, sometimes those are hidden up in up in a menu. So you have to click around. Whereas if you're looking at a computer screen, you have more real estate and those things will pop up like the to-do list or the calendar. So that is definitely something to look at. And we can maybe find a comparison of what that is and put it on the FAQs.
And that's just something that I found myself. I prefer looking at it on the laptop because I can see more.
Mhm.
Another question is, can parents also set calendar reminders?
So I just tried. No, we cannot. We can see what's already on their calendar. And so that may be a good home to school connection, sitting down with your student saying, let's add these dates real quick, just to make sure that we're both on the same page.
And then can parents add an app within Schoology like Windows OneNote?
No. So those are, go ahead, Taylor. I see your
Oh, no,
look.
yeah. Yeah, I think you were about to say too, those functions aren't available for parents.
So those connections are really reserved, I guess, for district resources. So something that's a district resource, we would then use an LTI connection so that it can access it in Schoology. But that's a good question.
That is a great question. Okay, that is all I see at this point.
Okay. Really, one of my last slides is really about the partnership and working together. We've already talked about everybody growing into this platform, students and teachers alike. And we hope that as the school year goes on, you see a lot of those different types of accessibility features and assignment features being used by your student. That is really our hope. But until then, we are just looking for some patience as we all get comfortable with that platform and really grow into it. Also, please do not hesitate to reach out with questions. Remember those short links, and those are also on the website. So we definitely want to connect, and as you ask questions, that's how we know what resources we need to create. And then also finally the resources. It's interesting, and Taylor, I know that you can probably speak to this too. We've recently been seeing a lot of reports, feedback about parent engagement as it relates to student success. And so the more parents are engaging, especially in their platforms like Seesaw and Schoology, and talking to their student about the work that they're doing in the classroom, we're seeing that that is paying off on the academic side. So we really hope that you'll take the opportunity to use Seesaw and Schoology for that purpose.
One other question did pop up. What note-taking app does RISD use?
So for elementary, there isn't a specific platform that teachers are using. It can vary from an interactive notebook that's physically in their desk. And I feel like in elementary, we're seeing more of paper notes. When it comes to secondary, in regards of notes, it's definitely going to vary depending on the course. So for example, AP courses, they typically have access to the AP board and they're interactive. They look like PowerPoints and then they kind of look like a notebook within a PowerPoint essentially. And they have videos within them and they're interactive notes for their students. So if it's an AP course, they are probably using that. But I know that it is not mandatory. It just depends on the course and what the teacher feels is best. We still have our traditional paper notes, and then students have access to the Google Suite. And so if a student is taking digital notes, it's going to probably be via Google Docs. But I feel that just kind of based off what I've seen, most students are taking notes in a spiral because they're doing an activity or some kind of like discussion or something in Schoology while they're on their Chromebook.
We did have this, Taylor. You want to wrap it up with this?
Yes. Okay, so before you leave today, we want to give you all an opportunity to process the information that you've received and have an opportunity to reflect with one another. So our optimistic closure is just answering the question of how will this knowledge improve the home to school connection for you and your family?
And you're more than welcome to respond in the chat to the question. The question is, how will this knowledge improve the home to school connection? We're wanting to know your thoughts on how will this knowledge improve the home to school connection. As we think about, from a district perspective, the need to make sure we're interfacing with parents around these different platforms. We want you to also think about how this knowledge will improve the home to school connection. So one response is, I think the flow of Schoology could be more streamlined. We get that. We totally understand the need to streamline, to make sure that all parents can engage and stay on top of knowing how to work through the systems. I love that.
And also, not just streamlining how teachers are using it, but also just the change of the workflow you have to create to navigate Schoology. It's different, and we acknowledge that for sure.
Okay. Nadia says, I can see the assignment now that corresponds to the grade and focus and see the specific areas where I can support my child. That's one thing that I hadn't really thought about, the need to toggle between those two, and the connection. I just hadn't thought about it. I'm glad that came forward tonight. It helps parents initiate conversations with their children regarding their performance and coursework, specifically when students are not as willing to talk about their schoolwork, which we know they're not. They're not always willing to talk about it. In high school, students are spread out in different directions with different classes, so the more streamlined and efficient an education management system is, the easier it would be for students to manage their education. I think we agree with that, and that's something that we want to continue to improve upon as we continue to learn the ins and outs, of Schoology and how it's going to best serve students, parents, and the district. Right. So the last thing for you all tonight, as we close out, we have 1 minute left. We would appreciate you taking a 3-question survey. You can use the link or just use the QR code and scan it with your phone. There is I think it's 3 questions. It may be 2 or 3 questions survey that we would love you to respond to. We're trying to make sure that we're gathering good parent feedback with each parent university so that we know how to continue forward, giving parents what you need as far as serving you well through parent university. Jonah has also linked it in the chat if it's easier for you to access that way. So please, before you exit, remember to take the exit survey. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you getting on with us. A recording of this video will appear on the RISD YouTube page, as well as the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion page. So if you know parents who could benefit from this information, it's not going away. We are going to archive the information so that parents who were not able to join us tonight can access the information as well. And then we have the resource page, of course, that they showed you earlier, where we have lots of resources already on the website where you're able to go and access more information. With that, it's 7:01. Again, thank you for participating with us. Please take and complete the exit survey, and we hope that you all have a great evening. We are going to go ahead and end the presentation at this point. Thank you all.